All right, good morning and welcome back to the Cross Connection. Now, as you know, the midterms are just 24 days away, and there is no race more watched than Georgia Senate race, where Senator Raphael Warnock is finally pulling ahead of Herschel Walker, who has been mired in scandals. Now, last night, the two had a much anticipated debate, and, well, just take a listen.
One thing I have not done, I've never pretended to be a police officer. And I've never threatened a shootout with the police.
Well, and now I have to respond to that.
We are moving on, gentlemen.
I have to respond to that. And you know what's so funny? I am work with many police officers, and at the same time,
Mr. Walker, excuse me, Mr. Walker, please, out of respect, I need to let you know, Mr. Walker, you are very well aware of the rules tonight.
Yes.
And you have a prop. Yes. That is not allowed, sir. Yes. I ask you to put that prop away.
Well, it's not a prop. This is real. And he said, I have a problem. I never worked with law enforcement. It is considered a prop, Mr. Walker. Yes.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
You're very well aware of the rules, aren't you?
Well,
aren't you aware of the rules?
He brought up the truth. Let's talk about the truth.
Thank you for putting that prop away.
Okay, Walker, listen to me. They're laughing at you, babe, not with you. Just in time for Halloween, as you just saw, this man really whipped out a badge he likely got at the Dollar Tree and claimed to have been law enforcement. Again, that wasn't even his first time doing this. Yes. He has claimed to work as an FBI agent and with the Cobb County Sheriff's Office, and neither of these things are true. He's gone as far as to post a picture of some document that labels him an honorary agent for Cobb County. This is a true story. Now, honorary is the important word here. A Georgia prosecutor told the Atlanta Journal-Constitution that being an honorary deputy is like, quote, a junior ranger badge. It's like getting the key to the city. It doesn't mean you now have an office at City Hall and you can set up shop. So, Georgia, I have to ask you, what the hell is on your mind? Well, I have two ladies here who are going to help me get through all of this, and that is Erin Haynes, East Atlanta Erin from MSNBC. She's a political contributor and editor-at-large for The 19th, Erin 3000, we like to call her, and Tia Mitchell. She's the Washington correspondent for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, and I just discovered a FAMU grad and Delta Sigma Theta member, so I'm happy to have you both here. Okay, so Tia, I'll start with you because, honestly, I don't feel like these debates really move the needle for voters. I'm baffled that 6% of Georgia voters say that they're undecided. What the hell are you undecided about? But then I wonder, are people being dishonest when they're being contacted by pollsters? So what do you think?
I agree. I don't think the debates really move the needle. The only thing that I think may have been impacted by the debate is if there are Republicans, conservatives who were starting to pull back and say, like, it's been too many mistakes by Herschel Walker, too many blunders, too many incoherent answers to questions. Perhaps this debate gave them a reason, those who needed a reason, those who said, Herschel Walker, give me something so that I can feel good supporting you. He may have given it to them last night. Now, that's a low bar, though. Well, I mean, if it just was, can he speak coherently? Can he have answers that make sense?
Did he speak coherently?
I think relatively speaking, again, he set his expectations really low, and I think he met those relatively low expectations. Yeah.
Well, Erin, Tia is saying there are low expectations, and people wanted to hear him speak coherently. I would argue he spoke mostly incoherently. Take a listen to him being asked about his multiple personality disorder.
Is it time for the federal government to step in to ensure all Georgians have access to health care?
Well, right now, people have coverage for health care. It's according to what type of coverage do you want. Because if you have an able-bodied job, you're going to have health care. But everyone else have health care is the type of health care you're going to get. And I think that is the problem. And what Senator Warnock wants you to do is depend on the government. What I want you to do is get off the government health care and get on the health care he's got.
You have been very open about your struggles with mental illness, and you even wrote a book about your diagnosis of dissociative identity disorder. We recently asked if you were still receiving treatment, and this is what you had to say.
No, that's all done, and you don't need to, and that's why I tell people. I think one thing I told people is I've been open about it, and I was open about it, 14 years ago.
Mr. Walker, in 30 seconds, can you clarify this? Are you saying you no longer have dissociative identity disorder, or is this something that you continue to this day to manage?
No, you don't have to have treatment for it. And I encourage people to continue to talk to people. I talk to my pastors. I talk to my pastors, and I continue to get help if I need help, but I don't need any help.
Aaron, that was quite the long soundbite because there were so many incoherent answers he gave. Curious your thoughts here, because it was just weird to me to hear him say, yes, you can get help, but no, I've already managed my own problems. Sounds he's giving a lot of Kanye there. What are your thoughts? You were there actually last night, so tell us how it was in the room.
Well, I wasn't actually in the room, but I was definitely in Savannah, kind of taking it all in. And by the way, Senator Warnock is on government health care, so I wasn't exactly sure about that line either. But look, I think it depends on, to the extent that Georgia voters were locked into that debate. There was also, a Braves game going on last night at the same time. Was the debate that we watched, a lot of us watched, was that the debate that Georgia voters watched? And I think that when you saw Herschel Walker, for example, looking directly to camera, talking about the issue of mental health, saying, look, I struggled with this. If you need help, all you have to do is ask. That might have been something that was very powerful for voters. I agree with Tia. There's definitely in Georgia some number of Republicans who, at this point, literally early voting is starting tomorrow in Georgia. We are 3 Tuesdays away from Election Day. This is the candidate that Republicans have. And so it is just a matter of how many of them are going to feel comfortable getting on board with this or not. And that debate may have made some of them get more comfortable with him, because this was, the only time that these candidates are going to debate. And, you've got running back Herschel Walker, who literally only had to prepare for game day last night. And I think that he hit a lot of the points that he needed to hit, because he managed to, at least meet, if not exceed the expectations that were there for him. And a lot of folks who were watching that debate said, that Senator Warnock, a seasoned, gifted pastor who is also the sitting senator, did not meet expectations in the way that they thought that he would. And so, it depends on who was watching that debate and what they thought they saw versus what those of us in the media, who frankly do not have a vote in this, were looking at. It could end up being very different.
Yeah, but that is so wild to me that somebody said Walker met expectations, but Warnock did not. And I have to say, I thought some of the questions posed to Warnock were a bit unfair. They seem to skew a bit conservative, to be honest. And so it's just wild to me. I think sometimes the media goes out of its way to normalize this kind of asinine behavior, just at the, overcautious effort to not appear to be partial or biased. But we, as members of the media, ought to be able to say this man gave asinine responses that were incoherent and did not make sense. So, Tia, I'll ask you, for the people who want to lie to themselves and say, oh, well, he did all right. I think a lot of eyes will be on white women in this race. In 2016, they outpaced white men in terms of voting for Brian Kemp, who was also espousing very anti-abortion rhetoric. Well, this woman is saying that Herschel Walker paid for abortion. She has the literal receipts of it. That seemed to just go out the window last night. Where do you think white women will fall? Because Warnock is a pastor of a church, and Walker is talking about, crime and, things that just don't make sense. So do you think that white women will value their right to their body and choice over everything else?
So I do think you bring up a point, which is that when it looks like at the time that was spent, there wasn't as much time spent on Herschel Walker's controversies as maybe the attention on the controversies may have warranted.
Yes.
But there was a lot of time on abortion. And in that way, white women, all voters, but white women that we know could swing an election in Georgia, they do have a clear choice. Now, Herschel Walker did flip-flop a little bit on abortion last night. He went from previous comments saying he opposes it, no exceptions, to now saying he supports Georgia's abortion law, which does strictly limit abortion, but there are some narrow exceptions. So again, I think there's a choice, a clear choice. Reverend Warnock, when asked, Senator Warnock said he's not going to lay out any exceptions where he would want to limit abortion, because he says that's just not a decision he thinks politicians should weigh on. That's between women and their doctors and their families. And so there's a clear choice. Even if you believe that Herschel Walker has evolved and he believes that abortion should be strictly limited, but with some exceptions, the contrast with Senator Warnock is he believes that in general, there should not be limits on abortion except for those that whoever is pregnant and their families and their doctors think should be the reasoning there. And so now women have a choice.
Yeah.